Welcome. Today I'll be sharing a bit on the year of Jubilee. Elohim, in fact, does request that we celebrate or honor his creation year. How is that, you might ask? Well, let's revisit a few things. Jubilees 231 says, "On this we kept Sabbath in the heavens before it was made known to any flesh to guard the Sabbath there on the earth." In the first year of creation, we know that the earth was formed, then the animals, and finally man and woman were created. Then Adam and Eve began to till the earth. Then came harvesting. So, this is a simple progression, but what you might not understand is the requirements set before us and how we are to keep and take care of the land, the animals, and the people. Our Elohim gave us strict instructions, the first one being the Sabbath, the seventh day of every week. But then we learn about the Sabbath year rest, the seventh day. According to Leviticus 23:3, it says, 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest, a holy assembly. You shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Yahweh in all your dwellings. Then we have the week of manna that also explains what we should do for the week in preparation for the Sabbath. We know that we receive manna each day, and on the sixth day we were to gather, or the Israelites were to gather double for Friday, the sixth day of the week, in preparation for the seventh day, the rest day, where they're not to gather any crops in. We also have a lot of examples of other rest days and the number 7. We have 7 weeks. We have Shavuot. We also have the summer festivals. Let's take a look. Leviticus 23:15 says, "You shall count 7 full weeks from the day after Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering." Then we know we count 50 days. From that day, we get new wine. And this is described in Nehemiah and the Dead Sea Scrolls if you are not familiar. And then 50 days later, we have new oil and new wood. We have the seventh year. In Exodus 23:10 it says, "For 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its yield, but in the seventh year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field may eat. You shall do likewise with your vineyard and your olive orchard." So not only are we told to observe the seventh day of the week, but here we are instructed that every seventh year is a year of release and land rest. So we store up just like we do weekly, gathering in more on the sixth day, but here in the sixth year, so that we have enough stored up for the seventh year that we are not to sow. So we can go out and grab some things from our garden to eat what comes up, but we're not to send out workers or harvesters to work. It's a year off. And if you know people who are in need, you can go and let them gather also. This is a year off, a respite year. So then at this point, we are enjoying the volunteer plants. So hopefully we've planted enough in previous years and that we've learned to preserve them for this particular year. I know we're in a different type of consumer based system now, and we rely on our grocery stores more than our gardens, but perhaps this is going to encourage you to stock up as much as you can. And if you have a garden, again, learn to preserve all of that food or as much as you can in preparation for what is to come in that seventh year. This is something that you could probably take up learning, especially if you have a garden, because this does pertain to you. Let me move on here. Then we have the week of 7 years. The book of Jubilees explains that a Jubilee consists of 49 years. So in a 49-year period, time is broken down by week or weeks of years. So each week is 7 years. Each year includes 52 Sabbaths or 364 days each, and each week has 2,548 days. So we have 1 week has the 7 years, right? So if you read in Jubilees and someone says, I'm 3 weeks of years, they're actually telling you they're 21, right? 3 times 7. In Jubilees 3:16 it says, "And in the first week of the first Jubilee, Adam and his woman were in the Garden of Eden for 7 years, tilling and guarding it. And we gave him work and we instructed him to do everything that is suitable for tillage." So they were taught how to do all of this and plan for the 7th year. The book of Jubilees explains a jubilee again consisting of the 49 years, right? So the 49-year period time is broken down with weeks of years. So year 1 of creation, right, has 7 years. So here we're looking over here. Here is, for example, year 1 right here. This is the first 7 years of after creation, for example. And this is the year right here, creation happened, right? Adam and Eve tilled the land every year and then rested from sowing on the 7th year. So the rest of the years are, 7, 14, 21, 28, etc. And the 50th year down here is actually the beginning of the next Jubilee. In fact, it's in the exact same spot of the first year of creation. So he is actually initiating a celebration. This is what we are celebrating on Jubilees. It's a celebration of thanksgiving for creation. It's just not said, right? This is unwritten, but this is exactly what is happening. Let's take a look at Leviticus 25:8. "You shall count 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the time of the 7 weeks of years shall give you 49 years. Leviticus 25:10 through 11 says, "And you shall consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants, and it shall be a jubilee for you. That 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows of itself, nor gather the grapes from the undressed vines." So Yahweh has asked us to observe and celebrate this jubilee, this 50th year, as a memorial of his creation year. So I found it really interesting that Yobel or Jubilee can be a term used for a ram's horn, similarly to the shofar, right? So both signify an instrument used to announce a moedim. In essence, we are announcing his creation year, the celebration of life for his creation. And we are to observe it according to his statutes. Okay, so the Dead Sea Scrolls also have a little bit on this as well. And so the Damascus document, column 16 says, "Therefore let man take upon himself the oath to return to the law of Moses, for in everything is laid out in detail. But the specification of the times during which all Israel is blind to all of these rules laid out in detail in the book of times, divisions by jubilees and weeks." Who's blind? Very interesting. They're blind to all that pertains to the Jubilee book. Community Rule, column 10 says, when each new year begins and when its seasons turn, fulfilling the law of their decree, each day is set forth, day after day, harvest giving way to summer, planting to the shoots of spring, seasons, years, and weeks of years. When weeks of years begin, jubilee by jubilee, while I live, on my tongue shall the statute be engraved with praise, its fruit, even the gift of my lips. All right. Leviticus 25:8 through 22 says, "You shall count 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the time of 7 weeks of years shall give you 49 years. Then you shall sound the loud trumpet on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the day of atonement, you shall sound the trumpet throughout your land. And you shall consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, when each of you shall return to his property, and each of you shall return to his clan. That 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows of itself, nor gather the grapes from the undressed vines. For it is a jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You may eat the produce of the field." So according to the 11th, the verse 11 here, it says the Day of Atonement comes, so we blow the shofar, consecrating our land as well. So it's a dual consecration. It's for the people and the land. It goes on to say, in the year of Jubilee, each of you shall return to his property. And if you make a sale to your neighbor or buy from your neighbor, you shall not wrong one another. You shall pay your neighbor according to the number of years after the Jubilee, and he shall sell to you according to the number of years for crops. And if the years are many, you shall increase the price. If the years are few, you shall reduce the price. For it is the number of the crops that he is selling to you. You shall not wrong one another, but you shall fear your Elohim, for I am Yahweh, your Elohim. So this is similar to what we know as proration of a bill, right? We're charged only from the start date of the purchase until that Jubilee year comes. So back then, there was no usury or interest on payments. Any loan was paid off by the time that 7 years came or by the time Jubilee came. And if someone borrowed in the third year, it was prorated from the third year to the seventh year. And, this is the good balances of weights and measures, right? Good balances were used. It's far from what we know today, right? All right. It goes on to say, therefore you shall do my statutes and keep my rules and perform them, and then you will dwell in the land securely. The land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill and dwell in it securely. And if you say, what shall we eat in the seventh year, if we may not sow or gather our crop? Pay attention, folks. I will command my blessing on you in the 6th year, so that it will produce a crop sufficient for 3 years. When you sow in the 8th year, you will be eating some of the old crop. You shall eat the old until the 9th year, when its crops arrives. So the key verse for a Jubilee timeline is in use. We can see this here. We know that the 7th year land rest every 7 years, right? Here it is mentioning not only storing up crops for 6 years so that you have enough for the 7th, but here it is specifically talking about the 49th year Sabbath year next to a 50th year Jubilee. In this case, we need to store up enough to make it through 2 full years of no sowing or reaping. And we should not sow in the 7th, which is the 49th year, or the 8th, which is the 50th year. We need enough crops to get us through the Jubilee year as well. So we can then begin to sow in that 9th year, which is actually the 2nd year in the next Jubilee. So I know this might sound a bit confusing, so I'm going to show you in a chart. Just remember, we store up in the 6th year for the 7th, 8th, and 9th. Okay, the Leviticus section that I just read is in regards to the 48th year, which is the 6th year in a week, right here. So this would be the year you plant double, similarly to gathering the double manna on the 6th day. And you keep in mind that the 49th year, right here, so we have the 48th year is the same as a 6th day of the week. It's the 6th year. And then we have the 49th year, no planting, right? We do not plant. And that's the same for the 50th year. So by the 51st year, which is in essence the 2nd year of the next Jubilee, you can now plant. But you have to wait for that harvest. So you're essentially living off of year 48's produce for 3 years. That's what's being explained in that Leviticus verses that we just read there. So 2 Kings confirms this in 19:29. It says, and this shall be the sign for you. This year eat what grows of itself, and in the 2nd year what springs of the same. Then in the 3rd year sow and reap and plant vineyards and eat their fruit. So it's saying the same thing. All right. So I've put together a Jubilees timeline based on the book of Jubilees. I had a video out, but since that video, I've added so much more, and I'll have to do a new one soon. It's always a work in progress as I add events to this timeline. And I'm a visual person, so I love to see it in front of me. So here's what we're looking at in the book of Jubilees. We have year 1 of creation right here, right? This was the year of all the creation animals, Adam and Eve, they started tilling and they were taught how to till the garden for the first 7 years and how it was to be done. And then we have the 50th year right here. In essence, it's the first year of the first week of the next Jubilee. But look, that's the celebration that we're doing. We are celebrating creation. So that's what it looks like here. All right. So, crossing the Jordan on a Sabbath rest and Jubilee. Did you know that the Israelites crossed the Jordan in a 49th year? So, if you've been tracking the book of Jubilees, you will find that information out also. So, they did not have to plant for that year or the next because it was a Jubilee year. So, our Father provided them with a land full of milk and honey, literally. Joshua 24:13 says, "And I have given you a land for which you did not labor, cities you did not build, and you dwell in them, of the vineyards and olive yards which ye planted not." So, in summary, we are told to observe every seventh day, 7 weeks of Shavuot and the summer festivals, and every 7 years is a year of release and land rest. Then, after 7 weeks of years are accomplished, we are to memorialize creation in its 50th year. So, just so you know, according to the Jubilee timeline that I have, the next Sabbath rest year is 2028, and our next 7th year or 49th year and 50th year will be in 2056 and 2057. All right. Thank you very much for listening to me today.